In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of property management. So let's just assume at this point you've already purchased the property and you are now the owner. Let's just assume today was closing day, you met at the title company, you signed all the paperwork, and the seller handed over the keys to this property to you. So the next steps going forward is if you have a rental property, well, now that you own the property, you need to get out there and start marketing the property for rent to try to get a tenant in the property soon so you can begin making income from it. If it's a fix and flip, then you need to go into that property with the mindset that you're going to get this place fixed up as quick as possible. Since time is money, you have property holding expenses like taxes, insurance, mortgage payments that you have to pay every month while you own the property. So the quicker we can get in, get it fixed up, and get it sold, the less that we have to keep paying those payments every month. Now on the rental property side, the property management should not stress you out, especially if this is your first property and if it's a smaller property like a single family home, for example, where you're going to have one tenant renting out the house from you. Property management can probably be self-managed at this point. I don't recommend hiring a property manager unless you live out of state or you've scaled to the point that you have lots of units that you're managing and it gets stressful trying to keep track of multiple properties. But when you're first starting out, if you've got just one single family home that you're going to be focusing on, you should be able to self-manage this quite easily. And it's good experience to start off trying to self-manage yourself before hiring a property manager. That way when you hire a property manager, you already kind of have the experience, you already know kind of what to expect with managing this property, and that's going to give you better eyes to keep on your property manager so you can make sure that they're doing a good job. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple examples from my own personal investing story. So as a 19-year-old, I bought my first rental property, and at that age, I was living out of state. I was in college still. So I actually helped self-manage my property, but I used my parents to help me in the same process of managing as well since they lived locally. Just in case anything would go wrong with the property, I knew I had somebody on the ground to go check out the property for me and relay information to me. But besides that, I was pretty much there to do all the work that I needed to do over the phone or on the computer, helping to self-manage that property. And so what self-management is it's basically making sure you're taking care of all the bills that relate to that property, getting them paid on time so that you don't lose the property, like to foreclosure, for example, if you stop paying the mortgage or you forget to pay property taxes. So setting up reminders in your phone, hey, the property taxes are due, the property insurance is due, hey, mortgage payments are due every month on this property. So making sure you're taking care of the finance side of the property, paying the different bills that need paid. And then the other side of it is actually managing the tenant. So when I first bought my first rental property, it was my responsibility to go out there and market that property for rent. So I put up a for rent sign in the yard. I put it on the internet, on different rental websites to get it out there. And eventually I started taking phone calls where I had people asking questions about the property, and then I would send them an application via email. So they could fill out the application, scan it back to me, or mail it to me. And then I could review those applications to decide who I want to rent this property. If I thought the tenant had good qualities, then I would set up maybe a formal interview with them where we'd have some more discussion before I give them the final approval to rent the property. So with that being said, you want to take some time to gather a good rental contract. You can have an attorney draw this up. So you can spend some money on an attorney to provide you a solid lease agreement to make sure you're protected as the landlord, that it covers different clauses like damage, how rent's going to be paid, the duration of the lease, things that could go wrong, whose responsibility it would be, if it's the tenant or the landlord's. So you want to make sure you have a solid lease in place. So this is a step where it's worth spending a little bit of money to have an attorney draft up a good lease for you and make sure that you go over it and have everything included that you need included so that you don't get screwed by your tenant who stops taking care of the property, starts damaging the property, stops paying rent, and you got to have then a process of how to fix these problems. And you can use the lease as your guideline telling you, here's how we're going to handle things legally according to our lease. So once I've got the lease drafted, I also want to gather applications. So you can get a template application on the internet, or again, you can have one drafted by an attorney, but a rental application, it's pretty basic templates online you can download that asks for a bunch of information that people fill out that are going to be applying to your property that they want to rent. And then you want to make sure you have some sort of credit check and background check system or software that you can run on these potential tenants. Now, a lot of times I request the tenant pays for a credit report and provides that credit report to me. That way I don't have to spend my own money on running a credit report for them. Now, background checks, again, you can decide if you want to have them pay and purchase a background check and send it to you, or if you want to do your own background check software. There's websites out there you can get on where you can pay a fee and you can pull an extensive background report on somebody. So what this does is the credit check makes sure that they're good with paying back things on time. So if they have good credit history, that shows they're probably going to make their rent payments on time. And then the background check, again, can help let you know of anything you need to know on the criminal side. You know, is this person going to be a worthy person to rent to, or are they a troublemaker, in other words, that could end up causing problems in this property? So you want to make sure you're aware of who you're renting to and the quality of person that they are before you rent to them, as this is going to help you make the best decision to decide who to rent to if you've got multiple applicants trying to apply to your property. All right, so once I've got the lease, I've got the credit and the background check steps figured out, then again, we can start putting this property up live for rent by going on to the internet and putting it on all kinds of different websites like Zillow, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, apartments.com, and any other rental websites that you can find on the internet that'll let you post your rental listing. Then you want to get it into the MLS by using a real estate agent. That could be another alternative, but again, you might have to pay a commission to a realtor for helping you lease your property. So consider maybe just trying to stay on the free websites, and putting a sign in the yard is some basic first steps before you go put it on the MLS with a real estate agent. But that is an alternative avenue you could go if you want help with a real estate agent leasing the property for you. Or again, if you're out of state, then you could contact a realtor and let them be the leasing agent who helps lease that property out for you in exchange for a commission. But again, it takes work off your hands since you don't live locally in the area. Now, as these applications start coming in, now that the property's for rent, you can begin sifting through the information given from these different potential applicants to see which ones you feel are the best quality of tenants, and then you can narrow it down to interviewing them to further out which one you want to go with. So I like to set up maybe some phone calls if they're not in the area, or if you're local, you can meet them at the property, tour through the property, giving them a showing, and that gives you a feel as well how to talk and ask questions to them to make sure that you feel comfortable with them being the tenant. So most tenants in the first steps of this process, before they even fill out the application, they're going to request a showing anyways. So they're going to be reaching out, letting you know a day and time that they'd like to go see the property. So again, this gives you kind of that first interview chance to actually get your feel for how this person is before they even send in all their information on an application. So the ones that send in applications and have security deposit money saved up, those are going to be your more serious tenants as well. Because you're going to probably get several that come see the property, but then they never end up filling out an application. So now if you've got one that's come and seen the property and they fill out an application, you can tell that they're probably pretty serious about renting your property. All right, so that's all the steps to getting a property leased out. Now let's assume that you are actually under contract with a tenant, they're living in the property. So the next steps of property management is going to be, again, making sure you're keeping up with the bills every month, paying the things that you're responsible as the landlord for paying. So if you have certain utilities that aren't covered by the tenant, you need to keep paying those utilities as the landlord. If you've got property taxes, insurance, mortgage payments to keep up with. Outside of that, you want to make sure you have your system set up for how you actually are collecting rent every month from the tenant. So you've got a certain day that rent is due, and then you have a certain day where late fees start kicking in, and you can assess late fees if the tenant's late, and making sure you're sticking to it, not giving them, nice guy passes. You need to hold them accountable, because then they're going to walk all over you if you don't abide by your lease. So you want to make it serious that if they don't pay on time, late fees are going to start kicking in. Now, as far as collecting methods, you can collect cash in person. I prefer to keep it digital. I try to have my tenants send me payment through a payment app. That way it can just come straight to my phone, and then I can transfer that money into my bank account, and it's a very smooth process. I don't have to get in my car and waste time out of my day driving to the property, knocking on the door, hoping the tenant's home, and collecting money from them in person. It's a lot easier if you can have this automated through some sort of payment program, like using Venmo, using PayPal, using Cash App, or direct payments through the different banking payment apps that different banks have nowadays as well. So now that you've got rent pretty much automated, you can just check in around the time that rent is due each month and see if payment has hit your account yet. And if not, you can follow up with a tenant to see what's going on. Say, hey, rent's due. I want to remind you about late fees. And then from there, it's pretty easy going as a landlord. As long as, you've got a decent tenant who communicates, you probably won't hear from them very much. So you should just be able to kind of continue on with your day-to-day life and not really be stressed out owning or managing your rental property. Now, occasionally your tenant might contact you asking some questions or telling you something that they think had gone wrong in the property that they want you to come out and check out. In these cases, again, you can go out physically and assess the problem and handle the problem yourself. Or again, you can hire help by having like a handyman maybe that you reach out to and say, hey, my tenant needs you to go out to the property and take a look at this for me. And the handyman can resolve it for you so that it's more hands-off and you don't have to stress, especially if you don't consider yourself a very handy person. Now, as you get comfortable managing this one property, you can begin adding more properties to the portfolio and taking on more responsibilities, managing more properties. As it gets to a point, though, where you feel that it's becoming overwhelming, having so many properties to manage, then you can outsource to a property manager. So a property manager typically collects 1 month's rent as their fee. So again, if you've got 12 months of rent, so let's just say $1,000 a month for 12 months, you're collecting $12,000 a year. So $1,000 a month times 12 months. Now your property manager will collect one of those months as their fee, so you're going to get $11,000 instead of $12,000. So you're getting $11,000 for the 11 months of rent you're collecting yourself, and then that 12th month of rent goes to the property manager as their fee for managing the property. So 1 month's rent, this works out to 8.33% of the gross rent that's collected as the property manager's fee. Now the property manager is kind of the middleman at this point. They're the one that the tenant would contact, so you need to give the contact information of the property manager so that you don't get those phone calls or emails. Let the property manager be the one to get contacted by the tenant. Let the property manager handle paying the different bills, handling the different rental check deposits into the account, handling the accounting for you. And then you pretty much can have it set up with the property manager to just contact you as necessary. So in emergency cases where they don't know what to do and they have to contact you to let you know about something that happened, that could be, the only time you're bothered. So property manager can help kind of add that extra layer to then keep you more hands off, and then you don't have to be bothered when little things come up like small repair items. Now, if you're someone who wants to control the money that's being spent on the property, you can, of course, approve all expenses prior to the property manager being able to spend any of the money out of the account. So you can, say, hey, you need to get approval from me before you go have someone, do some drywall work or fix a door or fix a window or repair a plumbing problem in the home or have electrical or HVAC stuff done. All that needs to get approved by me first. That way you can keep tabs on money being spent and make sure that the finances are going good so you're getting a good return on your investment and you're not blindsided at the end of the year that there's not that much money in the account because of all these expenses that went out that you weren't aware of. So you can have that set up as well as a process or a system with your property manager to make sure that there's an approval system so that expenses have to get approved first by you. So overall, that's kind of just a basic summary today of what the property management process is like from the start of buying the property and getting it ready for having a tenant and leasing it out and all the steps in between. And then also once you've got it rented out, the different steps to actually managing the property and hiring a property manager as another option. So thanks for watching this video. Be sure to check out our other video where we go more in depth on the entire repairs, renovations process. So after buying a property, how to go in and start doing all the renovations, how to become a handyman yourself, learning how to do different things yourself. This will help save you money down the road as not having to hire contractors to do these things.